Hello, everyone. Monique here, and I'm wishing you a beautiful new moon in Cancer. It arrives Tuesday, July 14th at 5:43 a.m. Eastern Time. To be honest, I started to make a video, but I decided at the last minute to record an audio. And that's because this Cancer new moon is really about not consuming excessive information. This new moon is asking us to step away from as much distraction as we can, to really quiet or soften the noise from the outside world, and to, as best as possible, withdraw from as many external stimulation as possible. Because what we want to do with this new moon is that we want to quiet ourselves enough, separate ourselves from the outside noise so that we can finally hear what is happening within. This new moon there's something very profoundly quiet about this new moon. One thing you'll notice in the blog is that I don't spend a lot of time talking about the new moon itself, and I normally do that. Astrologically, this lunation is not making many major aspects to other planets. So rather than being filled with activity, the real message of this new moon is for us to create space. So I like to think of this new moon as offering us a sacred pause, a moment to breathe, to reflect, to return home to ourselves before everything begins to move. Because this month is one of the biggest months that we have of 2026. And right after the new moon, we have a lot of activity in the sky. So prepare yourself with this new moon. The new moon in Cancer. Cancer is the sign of the home. It's the sign of belonging, emotional safety, intuition, nurturing, and remembrance. Remember. I talk a lot about that in the blog. This month, it isn't simply a place. Home is your center. It's your soul. Home is this quiet place within that you've always known, but you so infrequently visit. When you look at the rituals that I have for this new moon, you'll see that they kind of reflect the same energy. Things that are very simple. Take a bath, prepare a simple, nourishing meal, spend time in your garden, journal, practice a cooling moon salutation in your yoga practice. If you can, experience Watsu. But even if you can't do Watsu, a Watsu session, you can also simply go to the beach or go to your pool and just be in this kind of enveloped in water. So, whatever you do, really take the time to sit and be quiet, to rest and to listen. So, sometimes the most productive thing that we can do is to become quiet enough, still enough, so that we can hear our own wisdom. So, and I say that because we do need this quietness because right after the new moon, the universe, the new moon may feel like we're having this pause that the universe is taking a breath, but right after the new moon, the sky literally lights up. So beginning on the 15th of July, the outer planets begin an extraordinary conversation that continues through July 25th. So from the 15th to the 25th, 10 days. And in the middle of that peak moment is July 20th. And if you're on social media, if you're reading online, you will see that a lot of people have been talking about July 20th for a long while. So this is where these 10 days is where the attention really goes this month. So keep in mind that what's happening between July 15th and 25th and peaking on the 20th has to do with the outer planets. These planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Jupiter, they are outer planets as compared to personal planets, which are Venus, Mercury, Mars. And Venus, Mercury, Mars deal with our day-to-day and more personally within ourself. The outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Jupiter, well, I should say really Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they move slowly. And so they are more about not so much the individual, but more about shaping generations and also right now, particularly also the evolution of the collective consciousness. So let's start with July 15th. July 15th, Uranus, who is in Gemini, is going to form a very harmonious relationship with Neptune, who is in Aries. And what it's doing is asking us to really dream big. Think about that dream, that big dream that you have for yourself. It's an awakening to innovation. It's a time to spend to grow your imagination. And it's also a time for this new vision for yourself and ultimately for humanity. Next, July 18th, Uranus in Gemini has a very harmonious relationship. It trines Pluto in Aquarius. And Pluto is also always about power and powerful transformations. So we have a chance to powerfully transform our collective consciousness, our society, our culture. This is Pluto in Aquarius. And we have an opportunity to reshape our mind and how we communicate, um, communicate with each other. That's, the Uranus in Gemini. As I said before, the peak energy is July 20th. And this is when Jupiter trines with Neptune and it opposes Pluto. So, people talk about Jupiter as, a lucky planet. I don't really like to talk about Jupiter as luck. Jupiter is an amplifier. It's something that helps us to expand. So whether that energy is feeling comfortable or not comfortable, Jupiter does that. It expands, it amplifies. So we have a chance on this day to really expand both our vision and our vision specifically about what is possible and also our awareness on what we must change, right? And how we're going to create change. So on July 21st, Jupiter sextiles Uranus. And I didn't say this before, but Jupiter is in Leo and it is sextiling Uranus in Gemini. So it's bringing big breakthroughs. It's bringing, mental innovation and agility. With Uranus, there's always unexpected opportunities and, also a really new way of thinking about things. And then finally, on July 25th, Neptune in Aries, sextile, which is a very comfortable relationship, Pluto in Aquarius. And it reminds us that this isn't, this is really not just a busy week. I don't want you to think that this is just a lot of activity that's happening in the skies. This is actually much bigger. We'll be feeling it definitely through all of July, but more than even that, this is the beginning of a bigger and new story in our evolution. And what I find fascinating is that, most of these planets, Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, they're all at 4 degrees. And in numerology, the number represents stability, structure, foundations, and building something physical that will last. And so I think that this is just very, very symbolic of where we are as a culture, where we are as a society, and where we are as a collective consciousness. With COVID, since COVID, I should say, for these last 6 years, we've kind of been walking in the desert. And it's been years of disruption, definitely years of uncertainty. And for many of us, we feel like we're back in survival mode. And now we're finally beginning to invite a new way, a new consciousness into the world. So, the pandemic years, which I'll call from 2020 to 2026, has taught us resilience for sure, adaptability for sure. And it's also taught us the importance of community, right? That's some of the big takeaways from these, pandemic years. What I want to say is that really now, with this July 20th aspect, the shift is beginning. And I'm not going to say that things or the world will suddenly change overnight, but our consciousness really has an opportunity now to change. And I want you to remember again that these are outer planets. So for many of us, they won't necessarily speak to us individually unless we have planets around 4 degrees, whether it's about anywhere from about 1 degree to 7 degree in the planets that we're talking about. So this is really about moving humanity to its next level. So it's about a collective consciousness. And for me, I believe that, a collective shift begins with one person at a time. So we do have to still, look at how all of this is going to impact us, not only from an individual space, but how we're going to use our individual power and our individual shifts to create this new collective consciousness. So I want to remind myself, you, anyone who's listening, that every act of compassion matters. Every fierce conversation matters. Every brilliant download or innovative idea matters. And every choice that we make to this world that we're creating together, it matters. So some people, and we see them in the news, we see them sometimes at our workplace, in our family, in our, culture at large. There are people who are always going to hold on to the old system. They want to manipulate the old systems. They want to hold on to these old structures. And a lot of them, it could be change feels uncomfortable, or it could be about the manipulation of power. So keep that in mind and still move forward because history is always shaped by the people who are willing to see the world in a different way. So keep that in mind. Don't let what you see out there stop you from being the light that you're here to be in the world. And then after the 25th, we still have some big events happening. On the 26th, the lunar nodes are going to change signs. And anytime we deal with the nodes, we know this is some kind of new karmic direction. So, with everything that we have set in motion, we have this karmic touch to it as the nodes move into Aquarius and Leo. And it's going to be a very interesting um, time for us this month. So before I wrap up, I just want to say let's make it personal. In the blog, there's a section that says let's make it personal in 3 easy steps. And basically, it means, what does this mean to me, right? Start by looking, of course, at the house in your natal chart that is ruled by Cancer. And this is where the new moon is inviting you to come home to yourself. It's the area of life asking for greater emotional awareness, greater healing, greater nurturing, and of course, the planting of new intentions. Then, because there's so much activity in the sky, in preparation, I want you to look at the houses that are ruled by Aries, Gemini, Aquarius, and Leo. And these are the charts, areas of your chart where the collective shift is likely to become more personal. And again, you may not feel this directly, but if you do have houses or planets in those houses that are somewhere between 1 to 7 degrees of Aries, Leo, Aquarius, then you may actually have a more personal impact for you. So let's look at the Aries house. This is where Neptune is. This is also where Saturn is as well. But as far as Neptune, it's asking us to dream bigger, to trust your intuition, to lead with compassion, greater compassion. And it's asking you to think, to just sit and allow a new vision to emerge for you. Next, let's look at your Gemini house. This is where Uranus is creating a pattern interrupt. So be willing to ask questions about assumptions, and be okay with thinking differently, and also be okay to make it be fast. You don't have to belabor this. With Gemini is super fast, Uranus is super fast. So you can literally let go of, old ways of thinking in an instant. You can have a breakthrough and a new perspective instantly. Next, your Leo house. This is where Jupiter is in Leo, and this is so big and bright. And Jupiter is encouraging you and expanding on your innate creativity. Jupiter in Leo is asking you to be more courageous, to lead from the heart, and also telling you not to be afraid to shine. Finally, you have Aquarius. Find out where your Aquarius house is, because that's where Pluto is raising and transforming your relationship with power and authenticity. This is where you're being asked to not ask. Pluto is demanding that you release old ways of doing things and to discourage the courage to live a more full life, a more unique, your unique self, I should say. Aquarius is also always about expressing your unique self in that area of your life. So notice that, we're talking about Neptune in Aries, Uranus in Gemini, Jupiter in Leo, Pluto in Aquarius. These are all fire or air signs. And fire and air signs, they move very quickly. So the fire signs, they're going to inspire us to act. And the air signs are going to, really motivate us to change the way that we think and the way that we communicate. So, with all that said, this is why this new moon is very important. It comes first. It's this pause, this quietness before this grand acceleration, one that none of us have ever experienced in our lifetime. None of us have ever stood underneath this sky, and we will never again in our lifetime. So before life accelerates, take time on Tuesday to really become centered, because our thoughts shape our choices. I want to remind you that our choices then become our actions, and our actions shape our relationships and our community and the people around us. And our communities, our collective, creates the future. And that's what we're stepping into. The future has arrived. So if you'd like to explore any of these extraordinary transits that are activating your chart, your natal chart, I, of course, would love, love, love to help you. So feel free to reach out for your own personal astrology reading. I really, once again, I want to say that this is a remarkable, extraordinary, once in a lifetime period for change and to make this world a better place, to create the world that we want to have. So we will never experience this exact sky again in our lifetime. And we are certainly blessed to have this extraordinary opportunity. And we're not just here to simply witness this incredible event, but we're here to create the world that we want from this opportunity. So thank you. Happy new moon in Cancer, and enjoy the peace and the stillness before we change the world together. Thank you.